Welcome, friends. I had intended to record a bit of an intro while I was shuffling and pulling these cards, but of course, these immediately presented themselves. So clearly, the energy is strong and the message is clear today. My intention for this reading is to do an energy check-in for the current energies for the collective. As I record this, it is the day after the summer solstice here where I am, and it is the full moon in Capricorn, I believe. I also feel like a really significant aspect of this energy is the fact that Jupiter is now in Gemini, and that energy will be with us for about a year. And this transition, this change, feels like it's very significant. I know that it's something that's been coming up in readings for me and readings that I've been seeing, that Gemini energy is significant in terms of the path forward, and I feel like it's likely an energy of us gaining momentum, regaining a sense of trajectory or building or productivity in a sense, but more of a internally fulfilling sense of productivity than like the mundane day-to-day work to live sense of productivity, which is interesting. So the very first card that we'll address is the world, as it most wanted our attention and insisted on being front and center, appearing face up. This does sort of tie into what I was saying about Gemini and the change in energy. It's like the world is being presented to us on a plate in a way that it hasn't been previously, or certainly hasn't been for a rather long time. I think that a lot of people in general have been sort of looking for something of significance, of substance, something that's purposeful and fulfilling. And I think that the collective that will find this, that resonates with this, that I am aligned with, for them this is particularly true, that they have been moving through a chapter. When I say they, I suppose I really mean we, because this is very much the energy that I have been in, moving through a chapter where everything had to come apart at the seams so that new things could be incoming. And it's, in my case specifically, even something that I've been told has been happening soon for a few years now. And of course, there's progress along the way, but a very much a building sense of anticipation of something that I've been promised I will reach, something that I can feel incoming, but hasn't yet, not so much found me, but materialized in a way that I can see yet. I assume that's probably something that will resonate with those watching, since I felt called to share that aspect of my personal journey. I think that there are a lot of us who are helping with transitional energies, who are often early to larger transitional energies, who have been feeling this sense of waiting for a long time. And I think that there is assurance here, a reminder that it is coming, it is purposeful, and it is large beyond imagining is how I heard it phrased. Large beyond imagining, and that can seem pretty intimidating, but it also has the potential to be so wildly fulfilling, and not in a way that's too overwhelming. I get the sense of it being overwhelming when you get the chance to step back and look at just the breadth and the depth of everything that is happening, like in this future state where it is happening. But when you allow yourselves to be present in the present moment, it is not an overwhelming experience, because you can't see the full picture. You just move, you flow, you feel, and you enjoy. But there will be the times when you have the opportunity, the reminder, and the foresight. Foresight's the word that keeps coming to me, even though that doesn't totally make sense in this context to me, but we'll roll with it. The foresight to take that step back, to look at the breadth of everything that's happening, the breadth of the way your material life has changed. And of course, when I say material, I don't just mean money. I mean like anything tangible, anything you can touch, you can feel, you can see. That's part of the 3D physical reality. Anything that could be in some way measured, to put it simply. Goodness, now I've lost my train of thought. And when you do take the time to have this introspection, to have this outrospection, it'll be the kind of thing that sort of like hits you in waves of gratitude, waves of surprise, waves of disbelief, waves of deeper understanding of why things have come to be the way they've come to be, and the why behind the frustrating, drawn out, elongated process of timing that took place before you ever got there. Because the senses that, and I'm sure many of you have heard this along the way, especially if you enjoy watching readings like this, the sense is that the pause, that the wait, that the hold was totally necessary in order for you to change in subtle but significant internal ways, in order to be able to handle the magnitude, the gravity, the breadth, the depth, the wild and potentially overwhelming capacity of the changes that you are meant to experience, of the shifts, of the opening, that's it, of the opening that you are meant to experience, because your world is opening. Yes, see, exactly. So out of this held energy, out of this staying in place, this changing inside while the world moves around you, seemingly unchanged for frustratingly long periods of time, this was absolutely necessary in order to experience this opening that is beginning. And it will begin in small ways. In small ways that sort of like build and expand, sort of like the aperture opening as your eyes adjust to the light, as you adjust to the change in environment. You're given more. There's more visible in the world. There's more opportunity that you can see. There's more obvious states of change within your physical reality. Let's see what else is here. I'm getting the sense as I flip these cards that much of what they will be showing has already been touched on in the things that I have been saying, but we'll also still get more depth, and then of course confirmation from them as we go. Also, it is wild to note that so far we have not had anything that is not major arcana, which further speaks to the depth, the vastness, the significance of all the things that have been changing within your world, within your life, within your experience, and your capacity to perceive. Your capacity to perceive, to understand, to see. And look at those third eyes in both of these. The capacity to see beyond the veil, the capacity to see through structures, the capacity to see the structures that have been left behind and those that will never cease existing, those that are the true foundation, the true building blocks of our reality, of our experience, of the experience beyond the reality that we commonly perceive. And these are not small things, and they may happen or grow or appear within your life in seemingly small ways, but the way that they shift your energy, shift your capacity to engage with a broader spectrum of energies, those are not small things. Those are not small things at all. I think that these two cards are acknowledgement of the work, of the energy that you've put in on this plane, into these changes, into this transition, into ensuring that you are following your highest calling. This is not something that we have a simple time doing. This is not something that we chose easily, that we moved through easily. And clearly with the Knight of Pentacles here, it's something that did not happen quickly. It is a slow and steady kind of process of letting go of the things within us that we were holding on to unconsciously, that were standing in the way. Standing in the way of the depth of our true seeing is how it is being phrased to me. I feel like that's the kind of statement that we'd spend a long time unpacking the meaning of if we were so inclined. And perhaps that's something that you are meant to do at this time. Perhaps write down the phrase within a journal or in your notes app, or just sort of hold on to it in your mind to mull over and see what kind of thoughts, what lines of thinking it inspires. There might be some sort of depth of realization, acknowledgement of the purpose of something, some part of your experience that might come forth from that pondering. I think it's also worth noting that this Eight of Cups in reverse here, I feel significant alignment of the energies of this woman in the image here to the Hanged Woman in this card here. That this process was the core of what was happening. in this stage, in this phase. And that simultaneously, while you were letting go, while you were purging, is especially like cups being water energy, very much about purging in an emotional sense. I'm getting the sense that it's energy stored in the body, because quite often with traumatic experiences, with like the hardest experiences, the body, the mind is challenged by processing those emotional energies, those highly emotional experiences. And if it's in survival mode because of the challenges of those experiences, or the challenges of accumulated experience sort of like piling on top of each other, all sort of in the same time frame, it shunts those emotions off to other areas, to parts of the body, for them to be processed and stored ultimately, because they haven't been processed properly. And then that can often be the cause of physical maladies. And those are the kinds of things that were being purged through this part of the journey. But while that purging, while that releasing was taking place, you were also building in quiet, small, and subtle ways, building in ways that ultimately result in a bountiful harvest that you can't really quite picture or conceptualize at this point, largely because this is your first season planting, is the analogy I'm getting, because you have never planted a crop like this one before. And so you have been working, been working to prepare the soil, to make it fertile, to provide the seeds you are planting with everything that they need. And through this process, maybe you've been experimenting, maybe you've been using a limited number of seeds to test the waters, so to speak, and see what will come of these in the circumstances available to you, to see what will come of these if you plant them in a certain way at a certain time. As you've gone along with this process of experimenting, you've eventually ended up with a garden or a whole field full of these seeds, and some of them were planted all sort of within a similar time frame. Some of them were planted rather a while ago and were maybe stunted in some way because perhaps you were learning that it wasn't the proper season at the time that you planted those particular seeds. But it doesn't mean that they lost their capacity to grow completely. But the point of this analogy is that through this process, through this time of planting, seeding, experimenting, waiting, and maybe not necessarily believing that much of your work was going to amount to something, while you were focusing on like each of your current experiments, you're maybe not necessarily looking at the ones that you've perhaps lost faith in or have surrendered to the universe, to spirit, to being, to earth. And rest assured that whether or not your eye has been directly on them, they have been growing. Most of what you have planted has been growing, whether it has been obvious for you to see yet or not. And they think that a lot of this experimenting, this planting, this allowing has been tied to a believing, a listening to intuition. And that may have led you to do things that didn't necessarily make total sense to you, at the time anyway, but you felt called and you listened. And ultimately, that choice, that behavior, that way of acting will be rewarded, is the word that I have, but it doesn't seem to be fitting completely. Will be recognized. Will be recognized in ways that are fulfilling, is the specific energy. I think that's probably where I'm going to leave this for now. I might do a little bit more shuffling on this. We will see. But if I do, it will be a separate video, a separate message. We shall see. But thank you so much for being here. And thank you so much for being willing to take this journey, because this isn't easy, but it is so meaningful, both within your personal experience and within the larger collective reality, within the larger experience of unity as humans, as beings, as spirits embodied within the energy of this planet at this time. So, thank you. Keep going, because we have been assured that it is really, truly going to be worth the journey. All right. Be well now. Bye.